Hello varlets, welcome back to this video. This is going to be a relatively simple and quick one. I'm covering all the changes that actually happened in the patch notes. I wanted to see what they look like for myself, so this video is going to be the precursor to any build theories that we will put through once we cover everything here. So let's dive right into it. The first thing we're going to check out is the Mechanicus Power Sword. So this weapon got a substantial amount of buffs in the recent patch. The first thing you'll notice is that the boxes in the screen, which indicate how many charges you have, is a lot more clearer now, which is great. Each of these boxes also represents a 5% power, 5% strength for the Mechanicus Power Sword. So if you're using it as it is and not using any charges, all of your attacks will have a 30% power strength to them. So that's really good. Now, the other thing they've included is an additional light attack in the light attack chain, specifically the fifth attack. So it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this attack now loops together with the fourth attack, which gives you a very simple and easy to use horde clearing attack, right? So if you can also chain this attack into a overhead, which resets the chain. So those were the key changes made to the Mechanicus Power Sword in terms of its mechanics. Its stat also got changed a little bit when it comes to the mobility. Normally mobility is a dumb stat, so I'm using an old one here. But according to the patch notes, if you have 80% mobility, you will now get an additional dodge. And this is kind of an attractive proposition because mobility is very essential for staying alive and making use of a weapon that innately doesn't have that great dodge distance. It's still in the negative, so having more dodges allows you to create more space, which allows you to better maneuver with the Mechanicus Power Sword, especially since using its empower attacks do kind of slow you down. So you naturally want to use your dodges to get around while charging it up. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually the Arc Grenade. So I'm going to get some of the talents on. Now, this change is actually more substantial than I initially thought. When I read the notes, it said that the damage has been changed to be across a small 0.5 second duration instead of dealing direct damage. And I initially thought that they were splitting the arc damage instances across 0.5 seconds rather than all at once. And somehow I didn't understand how doing that actually increased the damage. But it turns out my understanding of it was wrong. Let me just spawn a crusher because that's the tankiest thing I can show you. There we go. So initially, in my previous Arc Lightning video, where I covered everything Arc Lightning, the Arc Grenade had a weakness. This is sort of a Goldilocks grenade where you can't have too many enemies because the Arc Lightning spreads out too much, and you can't have too little enemies because if there are not enough enemies, the Arc Lightning doesn't transfer enough. Now, even if you have only one enemy, it does this. Multiple ticks of damage instantaneously. And what the patch notes actually meant was that it was going to deal the arc grenade's damage multiple times in a single instance of 0.5 seconds. So my guess is it's dealing, what, how many ticks of it? Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5. Okay, maybe it's dealing around 5 ticks. So every 0.1 seconds, it's dealing almost 1000 damage. Now keep in mind, I'm pretty underbuffed. Let me just get some more nodes, kind of increase the damage, and then we can see the actual lethality of it. I'm not sure if the rending actually does anything, by the way. So, one crusher, one arc grenade. Let's see the damage. Okay, well, it just died from that. So, what this means is that the arc grenade is no longer dependent on having a perfect amount of enemies. Even if there are only a handful of enemies, so maybe like 4 enemies, which used to be not the ideal amount, you can still kill all of them instantly. So the arc grenade has a lot more value now. That's pretty good. And even if I spawn a whole bunch of enemies, the arc grenade is still going to do a respectable amount of damage to them. So, I mean, to be fair, it has only a certain amount of arcs it can go, but this is pretty good. So my guess is that it's concentrating all the arcs in the pulse within itself. So if there's only a handful of enemies, all of the arcs will be concentrated here. And so it wipes out everything here and then jumps to other enemies nearby. So overall, as I can understand from this change, is that the arc grenade is a lot more consistent when it comes to taking out enemies, and it technically deals a lot more damage now, even when there aren't enough enemies to jump. So this is actually a really, really big buff for the arc grenade. However, that being said, the arc grenade does still compete against the Servo Skull Blitz and the new integrated refraction emitter. So let's talk about that next, starting with the Servo Skull. Now, the key change to this is that, specifically for the Servo Skull itself, is that if you have no more charge, you can't use Nusferi command. You can see my Servo Skull is not shooting because it has no charge. I'm pinging now and nothing's happening. And just to show you that you need some charge, I'm going to get some of the cooldown back. 25% of 50 is 12.5, so I should have enough charge now. Yeah. Enough charge here. Yep. Now I've run out of charge entirely. So yeah, now you can't spam Nusferi command for free anymore. So that is the main fix that was made to the Servo Skull itself, the gun one. Now the other Servo Skulls, the flame one, got a overall what I would consider a buff because they increased the burn rate from 1 to 2. That's basically doubling how fast enemies build up burn stacks. But in return, they reduced the maximum burn down from 16 stacks to 12. So in terms of total damage, or the maximum damage that you can do, this is technically a nerf because 16 stacks does more damage than 12. But you can get to 12 stacks significantly faster than you could before, and that is going to help your overall DPS. So just for reference, this is how fast you can kill a bunch of melee enemies now with the Servo Skull. So the ramp up is significantly faster. So if you're fighting in an area, enclosed area, this is going to help you a lot better than it did before. Previously, it would take a great deal longer for you to wipe out things like poxwalkers and all the unarmored melee enemies. So when you're dealing with, let's say, for example, a poxwalker horde, or even just this melee horde, right? These bruisers, the Servo Skull is now significantly better at dealing with them. These are unarmored enemies, so they're going to take a lot more damage from burn damage as well. That is pretty good, right? This is on Auric, so they have like 600 plus health, and that goes away very quickly, and the Servo Skull still has plenty of juice left in it. So overall, I think when it comes to horde clearing, the Servo Skull now is a lot better. But if you're fighting, say, a whole bunch of, let's use Maulers, for example. A whole bunch of Maulers, it's going to help you do more damage quicker, but if the Maulers are going to stay within the radius of the Purgator Servo Skull for long, then your total damage capacity is technically kind of reduced. This is going to be much more relevant on, say, Havoc than it is on Auric, because even on Auric you can see that the Maulers are going to burn to death. And this is pretty good. So yeah, I think Team Reginald is going to be very happy about this, so may the Purgator Servo Skull live long. The other change made to it, and this is what I like, especially, is the fact that if you have both the Mechanicus Servo Skull and the Purgator, you gain 2 charges, and if you don't, you only have 3. So this is technically a nerf in of itself, because we initially had 4 charges and now we have 3. And 3 charges isn't too bad in my opinion. It basically means that if you have your full grenade charges, you can technically revive your entire team on your own, if your team is not able to then chain revive. So it is still fully functional in this regard. The fact that it encourages you to take the Purgator Servo Skull is to me a very smart way to improve build diversity, because now it's actually really useful, and it gives you the flexibility to then leverage more on your Mechanicus Servo Skull since you have 5 charges instead of 3. So overall, I think the changes to the Servo Skull is pretty good. And I think that the Purgator Servo Skull is definitely worth bringing in some builds now, because now you aren't going to be so tied up on charges, or nearly as much as you were before, because you had 4 charges, now you have 5. So that's worth thinking about. Now, the last change for the Skitarii is going to be the IRE, Integrated Refraction Emitter. The most important thing for this is that it no longer uses grenades to recharge itself, and you have 3 charges to work with as 2. Instead, right now, it operates on a 75-second cooldown, which you can't influence in any way other than for external modifiers. And this is really good, because this alone lets you, at base, the next 8 seconds, completely ignore range enemies. And let me tell you, range enemies can hurt a lot in the higher difficulties. So the fact you get to ignore them and fight to your heart's content, close the gap between them, you don't have to worry about being mowed down by 6 Reapers or 12 Gunners, no problem. is incredibly powerful. And the fact that it's on a charge system means you can continuously reactivate the Blitz again and again to keep using up your ability to remain immune to range damage. And that is really, really clutch. And you couple that with Overcharge Refraction Emitter. This one increases the duration from 8 seconds to 12 and also gives you an additional Electrocution Pulse, which, by the way, stuns enemies too. So let me just show you. So it gives them a proper stun, which lasts about 2 seconds. And as long as you have this on, melee enemies will also struggle to attack you. This means that the Refraction Shield is also really good in melee combat because the models here are electrocuted, which means they are prime for things like your Arc Maul or for your Arc Rifle as well. This also means indirectly that a blessing like No Respite, which I initially marked as really, really bad for the Arc Rifle, has maybe a bit more value if you're using the IRE with this effect, because the stun duration will allow you to use No Respite much more effectively than you could before. So that is probably the most useful change that has come for the IRE. I think is really good. And the fact that you can also take kinetic repulsion and have these charges up means you can, in theory, use up all your charges to remain range immune, become very difficult to engage in melee combat because of Overcharge Refraction Emitter, and you can't be pancaked very easily anymore because you're limiting the damage you're taking to 50. So all of this makes this a very, very strong defensive utility, which I am very excited to pair with my stun maxing build with Voltaic Emitter. I think this is going to be a very insane build to use. I mean, sure, you don't have the Servo Skull anymore, but the fact that you can, at will, combine stuns and chain them between Voltaic Emitter with Voltaic Arcs, activate Integrated Refraction Emitter right after to use Voltaic Resistance to make more arcs, and then be functionally immune to range attacks, very hard to bring down in melee, and you can't be instantly killed, is just really exciting to try. One more thing before I leave is the change to Power Overload, specifically Static Capacitor Drain. So this and, where is it here? Is it this? Redline Capacitor had their capacitance generations fixed so that it affected more than just your baseline capacitance regen. It should now affect all your ability to all your talents that regenerate capacitance, especially Augmented Power Cycle. So I'm just going to use this one. I'm just going to use Power Overload as an example. If you have Augmented Power Cycle combined with your 2% base capacitance regen, you have 3% here. This 25% here should affect this Augmented Power Cycle as well, which means your base capacitance regen for doing nothing should be around 3.75%, which translates to about 1.8 seconds in terms of cooldown. So this essentially means if you take something like this configuration here, you are cutting your cooldown by almost 50% for free. Well, not really for free, you still need to build up the stacks, but that's not really a problem. So this alone is going to be really good for keeping your capacitance up, which you are going to need for Noospheric Command now that it has been fixed. So I can see that this will influence the previous quote-unquote Noospheric command-centric builds, where initially you just ignored your combat ability, you ignored all your ability modifiers. So if you want to make that build still work, you might want to take pretty much all of the capacitor regeneration nodes and see how that will work. This is a theory. I'm not sure what the uptime is going to be like, but this in theory will be quite helpful in maintaining your capacitance regeneration, because 25% of 2% is going to be 2.5. This is going to give you 1.25, which is not bad because this is just for hitting enemies. And this is going to be 6.25, which I think translates to about 0.8 seconds faster cooldown. And all of this collectively will add up as you are trying to when it comes to your capacitance regeneration. So yeah, overall, those are the changes that have come to the Skitarii. I didn't cover every single thing, especially something like Decapitator. I want to leave that for a separate video because there's some math going on behind it. But yeah, these changes are overall in a very positive direction, and I'm very excited for the build crafting to come. In fact, I want to update some of my builds right now. So let me know in the comments what you think about this, what changes you are most excited to see, and I will see you in the next one, Varlets.